So without further ado, let us kick it off. So today we get to do some fun stuff. We get to Air Refuel. I know I've said that a few times, but it is very, very exciting. It's one of my favorite things to do, to be honest, especially on those long haul flights. You know, in a milsim environment, flying 60 plus minutes, following tankers out to a certain AO. To me, it's good fun. Pop some music on. Not that I should be doing that, and have a nice cruise up at 30,000 feet. We will also be reinforcing just how we work in a formation, how we fly together as a group in a safe and effective means. And I know I talked about it in our week 2 class. We will cover off the overhead brake landing. So that's where we put all of our on-speed work into play. We learn the proper the proper pattern around an airfield, and that will let us start landing in big groups much, much more safely, which, given we have quite a large group, very, very important. The lesson plan, a lot of the info in terms of, rearming, putting your livery and your Modex in, we would have covered in the first 2 weeks, as well as points 2 and 3. We have done that, and 4 previously. I mentioned we'll reinforce that radio usage with SRS. So if you do have any problems, see if you can resolve them now. If not, we'll try and get them sorted as we go up. Aside from that, the rest is for the most part new. The CCIP bombing will be very similar to how we learnt our CCIP rockets last week. Just a little bit different in terms of the delivery pattern, given the bomb glide slope and things like that. And yeah, as I said, we're going to introduce that overhead brake landing, which is really important and for the most part the same pattern that we use to land on the boat. So that'll be really exciting. In the kneeboard that I provide later on, you will notice that comms 1 and 2 have different keybinds. This is separate to your SRS mic radio 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is for the DCS AI menu, and it corresponds to the left and right radios on the UFC. But if you have the tanker frequency, for example, on the right channel, you will need to use the COM2 keybind. That is very, very important. In terms of new keybinds, obviously there's quite a few of the older ones here. Trim will be very, very important. We should already have that from last week, but put a trim or the 4-way trim on a 4-way hat on your stick. This is critical for on-speed flying. Talked about the radio 1 and 2 comm, so have that bound, as well as if you want your probe extend and retract. I'll be honest, you can also click it in the cockpit if you'd like, but it's a handy one to have. This radio pre-contact, it's good to have. It's not necessary if you can control the AI comms through the F keys. It just basically, this is a shortcut, but not essential. So we're going to talk now about adding in multiple waypoints. So we looked at 1 or 2 last week. We will now look at multiple and then how to turn that into a flight plan. So continuing on, yes, we put in a waypoint through the data button on the top right, then a UFC button will appear on the left here, and then we can use the buttons on the UFC to enter the waypoints, latitude, longitude. We haven't covered grid yet, but there are a few ways to add them in. Once we have, let's say we have 5 waypoints, what we will need to do at that point is, again, in the data page, if you look at this screenshot in the top left, there is a sequence UFC button. When you press that, and sequences are actually quite easy to add in, you will get this on your upfront controller. The ones you want to look at are INS for insert and DEL for delete. You press the insert button, you put in the number of the waypoint, so 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 in this example, and then press enter. And then if you do 1, so it'd be insert 1, enter, And just to make sure, insert 2, enter, insert 3, enter, 4 and 5. And once you've done that, you should see this at the bottom of the screen. So numbering from 0 up to 6 in the screenshot. And over here on your HSI page, which again will be your bread and butter for flying around and navigating correctly to wherever you need to be, you will see this dotted line. And this, through waypoints, in this case, through waypoint 0 to 6, will become your flight plan. You can't enter a waypoint in more than once, which is, sometimes annoying. But if you put in 1 to 6 and, number 6 ends you back where you started, just as an example, it will create a nice little loop for you, for example. So very, very handy. You can do some really cool things with it. You can tell autopilot to fly along your flight plan as well. We won't really be doing that today, but really, really cool to get a feel for how we add and remove waypoints. So simple flight form. So up till now, we've just been flying in a bit of a gaggle, a swarm of Hornets, if you will. But today we will start to clean that up a little bit and really fine tune how we fly in a form. So that looks a little bit closer, a little bit, I want to say more dangerous than we're used to, but we do so in a safe manner. So if you look at this top left screen or image, you'll find that there's really only, in a parade flight, there's maybe 5 feet of distance between wingtips. Now, I'm not expecting everybody to be perfect parade Blue Angels flight members today, but this is actually the ideal separation between a flight. So if you've got 4 flights in an echelon right, for example, you may only have 20 feet between each of the, combined, each of the wingtips across all of the jets. The other thing to really keep a look at is where your cockpit is relative to the other aircraft. And what that means is you ideally want your sightline to be perfectly flush with the cans at the back. And a good rule of thumb, because you're more looking at the front of the jet and following the pilot in the other jet, if you look at the pilot in the jet you are flying form off, and you can place the seeker head of the AIM-9 or the missile on the wingtip over the pilot's head, that is a really good position to be in. It means that you are within visual sight of the lead, so they can turn around and physically look at you, as well as if you make a movement with your head, they could see that, and that's used IRL for a lot of communication, non-verbal communication between pilots. But also they can look and see all of their pilots down the line, for example, like in this example, the lead here can see all of the pilots on the right wing without any issues. Another good piece, and if we just drop down to the bottom here, a good sightline is slightly below the jet in front of you. Good for 2 reasons. One, it provides a little bit of extra visibility for that lead pilot and for everybody looking back. Well, 3 reasons actually. 2, whenever you're flying form with something, you always fly under, and you never fly above somebody else that you're flying from because you have better visibility on them. So you don't want to cover them with the underside of your jet or where your feet are effectively. And the third reason is that deconfliction as part of the safety. If for whatever reason, even if it's a DCS problem, we get a desync or something like that, and the jet in front of you just stops in midair and flies backwards, it happens a lot. If you've got a slight, downward position just under this other jet, it provides a little bit of safety in terms of, okay, that person just flew right back, they went just above you, and we're safe. If you are perfectly co-altitude and they desync, you're getting a face full of jet, and that is not helpful. Big thing is, flying form is about the constant throttle management. You don't usually leave your throttle in one spot and go have a nap. It really is that constant, every half second. Every 100 milliseconds or so, you're making slight adjustments back and forth, riding it to keep that constant form. Over here, there are some other different types of form flying. So you got your finger 4, your echelon left and right. Basically, echelon is just a constant sequential chain of jets. Your trail, which is one after the other, and your combat spread, which is line abreast. Only thing really at this stage to be mindful of, we're not going to go into super fancy form flying today, but echelon left and right are your key ones. So whilst normally we'd be in an echelon right, and we will be in a right-hand formation for landing, if we're tanking, we will be in a left one, and we will see why in a couple of slides.
Some of the things I've noticed when new students are trying to figure out formation is they are scared to use their throttle for some reason. Once they start getting close, they are just afraid of using that throttle. They usually like to remain in the lower half of the throttle, and that just slowly, gradually just pulls them back, and then they're again fighting to get back up with the lead. So don't be afraid of your throttle. Don't be afraid to put it up and down however you want it. It's not going to kill you, and the lead is always going to be watching. So if you get too close, then the lead will break off before you hit them. And yes, and another thing, when you are joining up with your lead information, if your formation, if your lead is for one day, let's say he's in a hold like we usually do, we meet up at a point in the air, everybody joins up, and then we continue on to what we're doing for the day, right? So for formation, you or Navy standard formation, like we're going to be doing today, parade right, parade left, whatever, you would always join on the inside of the turn. So if, let's say, Taltus, you were in Taltus's flight today, you took off at your rendezvous point, he was holding a right hand hold. So he was banking right. His right wing was down. You would join on his right side. If he was in a left hand hold, you would join on his left side. And then once you guys straighten out and level up, he will clear you to the other side. That makes sense?
Yeah, I think that's really good. Thank you.
Yep.
And a slight benefit of that as well is wingmen always use a lot more fuel than the lead because you're constantly pushing and pulling and pushing and pulling, whereas lead just keeps it as is. It's like driving in a car, right? If you keep it at a nice consistent RPM and you flick the cruise control on, you're going to use slightly less fuel than somebody who's constantly accelerate, brake, accelerate, brake, accelerate, brake. And being on the inside of a turn means you use ever so slightly less as well. So it helps balance out that additional use, which is really important when you're doing long flights. You just don't want to run the risk of running out of fuel if things go bad. Cool. Thank you for that, V.
I have a quick question too. Since this is my first training, I missed a few. When we're flying in formation, are we using like any of the autopilots or the throttle controls?
Very, very good question. And the answer is no, you do not use autopilot when you're flying form off somebody. The reason being, if there is a change and the flight lead says, hey, we need to suddenly do a turn to the left or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Autopilot locks you into a very strict position, and it takes an extra couple of seconds to disengage and get comfy. If you're using your auto throttle, for example, the actual physical position of your throttle in real life may be different to what is being used to keep a consistent speed. So if you take the auto throttle off, you may either fall back really quickly or fly ahead really fast, and that then potentially causes problems for others in the flight. And the last one is the flight lead may also not be using autopilot. So they may be going slightly up, slightly down, slight left, slight right, slight increase or decrease in speed. That will be impossible to run autopilot off because that pilot, as well as leading the flight, is also doing their own things. And if they can't use autopilot, then if you try and do it, it'll lose that I suppose that connection, that glue of the form very, very quickly. Anything else I've missed on that
And if you
the
think
reason we
about it,
don't be?
realistically, when you're trying to fly formation, there's no point of using autopilot. because then you will never learn actually how to maintain formation or your position.
Hmm.
So no, there's practically no reason to be using autopilot. I mean, flight leads sometimes will use autopilot because they have a lot going on. They got to figure out where you're going, fuel requirements, and all that stuff. So flight leads are allowed to use autopilot as long as they keep it stable for the wingman. But the people flying off the wing usually want to stay off autopilot. And if sometimes we want you to look down, like plug in coordinates or fence in or something, flight lead will usually tell you to space it out a little bit so you can kind of go heads down and you don't have to kind of worry about the formation just for a second so you can do what you need to do. And then once you're done with that, the flight lead will tell you to bring it back in, if that makes sense. All right, combat spread. So you see, where can you point out combat spread, Taltis, on your slide?
This one here.
Yep. There you go. There's combat spread for people wondering what he's talking about. So basically, that is a line of breast formation, and basically we use visual and something called as yardsticking. So not going to get too much into that, but basically your flight lead can actually turn his plane into a tachyon. We have used a tachyon in week 1 and week 2. We should have, the new people might not know what that is and how to use it, but the people that were here already, we kind of learned what a tachyon was and how to use it, right? Your lead, using his tachyon, actually, he can make his aircraft into a navigational aid for his wingman. So when you plug in a tachyon frequency that the lead gives you, you're actually able to see your distance from his aircraft. And basically, the person on the right, so let's say the blue guy in that picture was the lead, the green guy would be a mile away from him. So on his HUD, where you see the distance from the tachyon, it should show 1.0, and if you look to the right, you should be in a straight line abreast with the lead. And the straight line is done visually. There's no aids for that. You just have to kind of look at the aircraft next to you and line up exactly right next to them. But the distance is given to you using tachyon and a method called yard sticking, which we will not cover in these lessons. But if you are curious about it, go ahead and get in touch with me and I will take you up and teach you.
We may kick it back off. Thank you, V. And yeah, V's probably one of our best form flyers in Hornet Squad. So if it is something you're interested in, definitely reach out. He's very, very good at what he does. Okay. So week 3, we are, as I mentioned, we are tanking. So what does that mean? What does it look like? How do we do it? What do we not do? Whenever we move into a tanker or we're going to or we're intending to refuel, we always line up on the left-hand side. And this is why an echelon left is important. So this, in this case, will be the lead. Then we will have the second in the flight, third in the flight, so on. We can potentially look at it from a fuel emergency situation. Who has the lowest fuel, we put them in first. But if that's not a major issue, it'll just be the flight numbering down the list. Realistically, with flights this size at 10 per flight, probably just going to be whoever can line up. We just line up in a nice clean manner as much as we can. So what we will do is the lead will basically position themselves here in form on the left of the tanker. And what will occur, and this is not really to scale, but it's a good enough rendition. What will occur is when we do start to tank, and we usually don't call in just because DCS can get a little funky, we usually don't call in to the tanker unless you're actually the person about to jump in to the hose. Otherwise, it just gets confused. And it's just a little easier to do so. But what will occur is, if we are positioned right here, we're flying on form with the tanker. The first person wants to go in. They will drop back down a little bit, so under, and this is a good example because it's a review, under the tanker, and then slot in where this picture is, right behind the basket. You always go under when you're getting into the position for the same reason as I mentioned with form. If you are under, then the jet you're flying off, or the tanker, is in your field of view. It's not being hidden by part of your canopy, part of your cockpit, under your feet, etc. So you move in. You'd probably do the first call to say, hey, I'd like some fuel here. And then when you move in, that's when you say or use your ready pre-contact call. And remember, this is from the AI radio, so AI or COM 1 and 2. If it is on your left radio, it'll be on COM 1. The right radio will be COM 2. There are different controls for each. And in the kneeboard I provide to you today, it will have the general or the default keybinds for the two radios to access the comms. If you change them though, hopefully you remember them because I have no idea what you will change them to. But basically once you're here, you'll use your probe button to push the probe out. And then the aim is, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. We want to connect the probe into the basket here. Now this, on the surface, seems quite easy. It is very, very challenging to do, and it requires a lot of very, very minute skills and very, very calm inputs. The big thing I was told, and it seemed to work, and hopefully it works for other people, is when you are flying and you're trying to make a contact with your basket here, you want to use 1/8 of the input that you think you need. So you're instead of pushing your stick forward an X amount, try and almost do it 1/10. But the inverse is you will be making more frequent changes. You're always constantly making tiny little adjustments. This is really important, and it's also important for your throttle, because if you go more than 5 knots faster, you'll blow past the tanker at this range. But with all of that, and you'll see in this little flow on the right hand side here, 1, take a deep breath and do not just grip the stick until you choke it. I'm sure there's many jokes there, but we're not going to go into that. But take a deep breath, hold the stick loosely. I try and think of it, like you see the old jokes, cartoons and whatnot, where they're holding a teacup, in the French way with like their thumb and their index finger, and the little pinky is flying out. Think of that and apply that to the stick. You really want to be super light, super calm, and very, very small inputs. If you start, yanking the stick left, right, up, down, and the throttle back and forth, you'll never succeed to this. So we really want to be as calm and as minimal as possible in all the inputs we do. Okay, hopefully that's come up now, and you should see my axis tune panel. And I'm looking at my roll at the moment. Now, this is my settings. It will be different for everybody. If you have a stick extension, it will be different. If you don't, everything will affect what you do with your axes. And I've just got my rolls set here, so I'm using my roll as an example. Your dead zone, you can see here, it sets how far the stick has to move before inputs are actually registered into DCS. This is really important. If you have a stick that has a really, really average dead zone, in terms of even when it's sitting in the middle, it's sending input to say go left or right, you want to increase the dead zone a bit. Generally, anywhere up to 5 is standard, depending on your stick. You don't really want to go too far beyond, because then you're moving the stick an absolute mile before you get any input. So I would advise, unless it's a serious issue with your stick, keep it within 5.
All right.
Your saturation, you don't want to touch, because we actually want the full capabilities of the stick and the full deflection changing what's happening. So I always leave my saturations in terms of my base inputs to 100. Now the curvature, this is the one that is helpful, because it allows you to, I suppose, pad your inputs a bit. Usually it will be plus, and you can see as I raise it, see how the center of that curve becomes a little flatter. It means that
Yep.
at this drastic curvature, if I pull the stick left or right a little bit, I need to pull it heaps just to get a tiny amount of input. This, again, I wouldn't have it at 50. It's more just showing you for an example's sake. This is what we're talking about in that it helps you pad or ease out a little bit that initial point. So the tiny movement does a little bit less. I would not rely on using drastic curves because it's actually, unless you need it for your stick, which is very, very different. If you have a high curve, it's going to actually make you a worse pilot for everything else. By the same token, there is a level of curve that needs to be put in just because, we're flying with non, $1 million pieces of equipment. Usually anywhere from 0 to 15 is your rough sweet spots across the board. I've seen some people use it a little less. Some people fly with nothing at all. And I've got a stick extension and I fly with a curve of about 5. So it doesn't really affect it all that much at all, as you can see. The tanking, as I mentioned, be really calm with your stick and don't death grip it. Always approach from the left side, move under and then into your position behind the basket. And when you have finished tanking, you'll see there is almost a mirror image in this main section here. Once you have finished your tanking, you drop under. So look at this, you drop under the tanker, you move to the right, and then you'll slot in after the right-hand side form. So everybody starts on the left, we tank and then move to the right. So this person, if they finish, they would slot in here. And then the next person would slot in further down. So it always starts in echelon left, ends echelon right, and then we can fly off and do what we need. This, we do not expect everybody to tank a full tank of gas first time you do it. In fact, you probably won't do it on your 4th or 5th times. It takes a lot of practice. We're going to look at the overhead brake now. And this is the pattern that you will land pretty much with 95% of the time. I'm going to look at the right-hand side first. The overhead brake, and this is a good example or a good image to keep in mind. You'll
Very
start
excited.
down here. Oh, it's great fun. You'll start down here in the initial, right? And you can see in this example, we have 4 jets in the air. What will occur is as you come in, all 4 jets will be just offset to the right of the runway, all at 800 feet above ground, and all at 350 knots. So we're all going to keep this nice, really tight form. And, this is supposed to look cool. So being in that parade form is exactly what you need. When you get here, and we'll cover off some details on what to do at each point, just after the runway, the first jet will brake, and they will do basically a 180 U-turn to what's called downwind. Then 0.5 to 1 mile after, or we usually just do 10 seconds or whatnot, to be honest. 10 seconds later, number 2 will do the same thing. 10 seconds later, number 3, 10 seconds later, number 4, and so on. This, as you can see, we can be in a perfect form, and this solves our issue of everybody coming into land at the same time because everybody then, as part of this form, has a 10-second interval. So it's almost the inverse of when we're taking off and we wait 10 seconds at a time. Now we're waiting 10 seconds before we start our landing procedure each. And it gives us a nice separation across all jets. But let's break it down to just what one jet does, because that's all that will be important for yourself. Everybody has their own responsibility. So as you come in from the initial, I mentioned, you're at 800 feet and 350 knots. And this is the number, this first line here. When you are just past the runway or you've waited your 10 seconds for the previous person, you will say your number. So in my case, 1 in the brake, and that's when you start doing your brake turn here. Now, brake turn, you can do one of 2 things. Either put your speed brake out and fly it or do a 2.5 G turn. And I found that was a little easier learning, but I'll go through both options. Your G, sorry, I should say just over the left here, where it says G here on your heads up display, you're looking for the magic number of 2.5 when you do that. So you turn, you put your speed brake out, you do a 2.5 G turn and hold it until you're completely 180. The other option is 1% of your airspeed in G. So, for example, if you are at 350 knots, move the decimal place twice over for 1%, that would be 3.5 Gs. So instead we're looking for 3.5 in this number. But you won't use your speed brake. So your speed brake's almost acting as a little bit of a buffer if you choose that method. Either way you go, you're going to do a brake turn which is exactly 180 degrees, and you're going to end up flying reciprocal or the opposite way to the runway. At this point, so in this section, the downwind, this is where we will put our flaps down to full, gear down to full. And I know we've seen some people, look at what they like to do with their flaps. Some use half, some use none. The answer is when you're landing in a Hornet, correct procedure and the way we'll teach and the way you really should be doing it is once you're below 250 knots, your gear goes down and your flaps go down to full all the time. I've never landed with half flaps. I don't know if you have, V.
No, actually, what I've found with half flaps is it will mess your lineup up because it's gonna make you less aerodynamic in that configuration with the gear down.
Yep. And people, we see a lot of times will get asked the question, oh, I'm doing this. I've picked up half flaps because I was getting a little bit slow. And then I've ruined my lineup, yada, yada. The answer is we need to get really good at flying on speed with your flaps down at full. And that consistency is what will let you land with a nice, smooth approach every single time.
Yeah, today we're gonna find out who didn't practice flying on speed after we taught them how to. Because if anybody is doing the brake and once your gear and flaps come down, you're gonna be making that base to final turn. If you want to point at that, tell us real quick. The base to final
Your
turn.
base to final, yep. So down
Yep,
here.
right there. You're going to be making kind of a steep turn on towards the runway, especially if you're at that 1.2 mile marker on the downwind. You're going to be making a pretty steep turn, and if you don't maintain that E bracket and angle of attack with your speed and trim, you're going to stall. You're going to stall pretty immediately, and we're going to be able to tell who needs more work on that. So we'll be making note of that and reaching out to you. But please, 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 when you are trying and coming into land in the pattern, as soon as your gear and flaps drop, the first thing that needs to go in your head is, I am no longer allowed to use pitch. Please don't pull your stick back and forth to pitch up and down. That responsibility now relies on your speed to go up and down and your trim. If you pull back in that base to final turn, a lot of people like to pull back because they think, oh, I'm going to overshoot this turn, but oh, I can just pull back and I'll correct for it. Guess what's going to happen when you do that? You're going to get a face full of ground. So if you think you're going to overshoot your turn and you're not going to line up onto the final correctly, just go around immediately. Gears and flaps up, full afterburner, punch in, get out. Not punch. Don't eject, please. I meant go around, climb again, and then join the pattern. And we'll sequence you back in. An instructor will help you come back in. But please do not pull back on your stick base to final turn. Oh shit, touchdown!
All right. So thank
Sorry
you for
about
that. No, you're right. So
Watching football game.
that's all good. All good. All right. That's okay. Cool. So we're going to go over a real overview of this, start to finish. V's covered a lot of it. I've covered a lot of it. Let's just put it all into one nice, smooth process. You come in for your initial. And for the most part, lead will do most of the comms leading up to here. All you have to do is mention when you're in the break. You can mention when you're downwind, base to final, and then when you're on final. That is A-okay. And when you vacate the runway if you'd like. But we're coming in from initial. We're a flight of 10. We fly over the runway 800 feet up, 350 knots speed. first person or first in the flight, the lead gets here. They begin their brake. 1 in the brake starts that turn 0.1% G, and then they will begin their landing checks here. So gear down, flaps down to full. Get down to 600 feet. So it's 800, 600, and then you kind of want to be 400 down here leaning in. So 600 feet here, you got your flaps out. This is where you get on speed. So you click up your trim a little bit so that your velocity vector is in your E bracket. We did a bit of practice with that last week.
Hey,
This
topic.
is where you do it. Yo.
Yeah, just wanted to mention there's buildings where we're supposed to be on base, so just tell the students to be careful of those buildings, not
Oh
to get
yeah,
too
don't
low
go
over
too
them.
low. 400 is your floor when you're here. So don't go below 400. So you're on speed here. You've got your velocity vector in your E bracket. You're at 600 feet. Speed does not matter now because your velocity vector is in there and you're using throttle to control your up and down your pitch. You do your base to final turn here, which is you do a left hand. We're going to go back into the runway. You may need to put a little bit of power in to account for the loss in drag, loss in lift of one of your wings. And once you're lined up at the runway, you even out. You're at about 400 feet at this point, and that's when you drop a little bit of throttle, put your velocity vector in your E bracket on the start of the runway. Make sure you're not, flying down at 2,000 feet per minute. Probably won't be if you've done all the numbers previously correctly. And once your velocity vector in your E bracket is planted on the edge of that runway, use your throttle to hold it there, and you'll roll left and right to make sure you're on the slope. You're not, flying off this way or this way. And then you just let it come in. You don't flare. You just let that jet take itself in, land, and then you reduce power, put your speed brake out, and hit your brakes. Don't use your brakes too heavily. Let yourself run down to the end of the runway because there might be somebody behind you. But, don't go off the runway either. There's a bit of a fine line there. But just don't stop halfway down. That's my biggest thing. That is a lot of information to process in a very, very short time. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Yeah, I got a quick question for you. So coming from the civilian aviation side of things, so you do not want us to flare in the landing, knowing that we have to be off speed in that on speed in that E bracket. What should our descent rate be? What's the descent rate for the gear on the F-18?
I take this one.
Go for it.
Yep, about 800 feet per minute descent rate on that landing gear. So you can slam that bird down. But also, the reason why we are not flaring is ultimately this what we're practicing here is an FCLP, field carrier landing practice, keyword carrier. This is preparing you for an overhead brake over an aircraft carrier and how you're going to land on a carrier. You do not flare over a carrier. I don't know if you've ever tried and attempt to land on the carrier, but the runway is about 750 feet long. And if you try to flare, you're going to be flaring to God. So we fly on speed because basically what we're doing is we're having a controlled crash landing into the runway. Every landing you make in a Hornet is a controlled crash. So on speed, keep that on speed. Just aim for the black marks on the runway where other airplanes have touched down previously. That's a good aiming point. Put your velocity vector, E bracket there. Make sure you're on speed and bring her on down nice and gently, but also not too rapidly. If you look at if you're like on short final and you're coming down more than 800 feet per minute, I would go around because then you can damage your gear. Also, Tautis, if you want to go ahead and mention the landing weight and how we're not supposed to land beyond certain weight or it will break the landing gear.
I might do that for week 5. Probably won't be a massive issue today, given we won't. It'll be unlikely we trap a full bag or full few bags of fuel. But yes, weight does come into play as well moving forward. Just not something that I'm going to be too worried about today. Now, the other thing is for your bombing. It will be the same process as week 2 for when we were doing the rockets or the guns, for the most part. So you will hit your air to ground button, you'll hit your master arm switch on the left, and then you will go into your stores page and select the weapon you want to drop. And for reference, I might even just quickly flick back and show you that, just so that we're all on the same page. So you hit your air to ground button, hit your master arm on, and then on your stores page, which should come up automatically when you hit air to ground, pick whatever weapons you have. They'll be in the top here. Keep CCIP, that'll be fine. Let me just run back to the next set. All right. The only major difference we will have with a bomb is the drag line, and we don't get a circle. We instead get a bomb drop line. And this drop line and the angle that you need to be down is steeper than you think. So rockets, they have a bit of their, they've got their own power. Bombs do not. So they will glide down to a target. So you need to be at almost, 25 to 30 degrees descent, and try not to be too fast, because then you'll just run into the ground, which is not good. But you'll see this vertical line with a little horizontal cross, and it will travel up and down this line. What you are looking for is when this horizontal line goes right down to the bottom, hits the bottom, and then starts going back up, but deletes any of the vertical line underneath it. So you should just see a plain cross at the bottom of the line wherever you think you're going to drop a bomb. I promise that will make sense when you're actually in the jet and you look at it. But once you've got that bottom cross here, that's when you know, okay, great, that's where my target's going to hit. Or my bomb's going to hit, sorry. Apart from that, same process. We would use a roll-in maneuver, so keep something on your, either your 10, 11 o'clock or your 1, 2 o'clock, so you can see it out of the corner or the 45-degree angle of your windows. Roll in so you're inverted and get that descent pattern going, and then twist back, get your wings level with your descent pattern, and try not to be too fast so you have more time to drop.
Cabo traffic, water 11, 3 mile initial for the overhead brake, runway 06, full stop. Cabo Lady. Cabo Lady traffic, water 11 in the brake.
And you'll see here, this is where we're either going with speed brake and 2.5 G, which is what he's, no, he's doing his 1% G. No, he uses speed brakes, sorry. So he'll try and keep 2.5 G with his speed brake out, and when he hits 250 knots, that's when he'll drop his gear and flaps down to full. You'll see that little E bracket has come out. We'll start trimming up so that the velocity vector is in the middle of that E bracket. And then you'll find once you're at a certain point, you'll need to put a little bit of power in just to maintain your 600 feet.
Cabo Lady traffic, water 11 downwind, runway 06, full stop. Cabo Lady.
Pay attention to his control inputs on the bottom left, as how he's not using any stick input to go up and down. Just watch his throttle.
Cabo Lady traffic, water 11 base to final, runway 06. Cabo Lady.
And you can see there are the buildings V talked about, and there is a slight descent here to get down to that 400 feet per minute as we get onto that short final, which is just in front of the runway. Still using throttle to maintain your pitch, not using the up and down on the stick, and obviously the left and right to roll the
Copy
jet.
Lady traffic, water 11 short final, runway 06. Copy Lady.
So you can see it was about 400 feet per minute as he made that, 400 feet as he made that call. You can see he's not really pushing any power in. He's keeping it as is, maintaining that feet per minute descent. And just lets
Ignore
it
what
come
he
in
said
down.
about. Ignore what he said about the flare. There's no flare. Don't pull back on the stick.
Ah, yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
Don't pull back on the stick. Just add a little bit of power to raise your velocity vector once you get close to the ground. Do not pull back on the stick, because then that's going to create horrible habit, and then we're going to have problems when we go to the carrier.
Lady Charlie, Papa 5.
Roll left, roll left. Flight controls. Flight controls.
Traffic 36 route 227.35.
Radio check, ISOR 123.
Region 5
Anyone doing radio checks, please go ahead and do them in your flight frequencies and not on the main comm. 377, escape. Whoever's saying hello, I hear he's loud and clear. Channel 9, loud and clear.
.381 radio check.
31, 36, show 5.
Test.
This is 392, line check, out of here.
We don't have to take it.
Five minutes later.
Jump.
Here's your name right?
5.
Cool, let's get it going. RJ on dash C. Alright, move up to 7, ice.
7.
And confirm flight 2 is on button 7, auxiliary.
That is correct. Sorry, who was that? Mate, flight 2, if you're with B, you're in 9. If you're with me, Telthus, you're on the right ring.
Okay, I was going up the knee board here. I'm on B's flight, and it said Ox was 7. Do you know what button I'm supposed to be on?
Yeah, that is an error on my part, so you followed the knee board correctly. If you flick up to channel 9 on Orbs, that'll be where they're sitting. Apologies for that.
Yeah, no worries, thank you.
Cool. Sergeant Rocks, you on freak here? Okay, Bryce, are you on freak?
Yep, I'm here.
Great, and Mav on 11? 11. heads.
Ryan, can you hear me?
5x5. Thanks, Roberts.
Uni 380 checking in.
5x5 unit. Are we taking full view? That'll be good. Yeah.
389 checking in to Talbus.
389, I read you 5x5. Do you hear me now? I'm talking on SRS at the moment. Brooks, I am on SRS. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
5x5, can you hear me on SRS?
Yes, I can. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome, legendary. Fantastic. I'm so glad. Alrighty, I will just note, Uni, I think you are on in B's flight. I'm just going to move you down on Discord.
How do I put in the east coordinate in Waypoint?
Uni, can I get you to change to frequency preset 9 on your aux key, please? Alrighty, flight, it looks like we're all good. Ben seems to have disappeared, unfortunately, so hopefully he can rejoin us. But can I get everybody just to check in once more with their dash number? And Maverick, can I get you to slot into dash 3, please?
Dash 3, copy. 2, 3, 4, 5. Seven. 8. 9.
10.
Legendary work, everybody. Alrighty, I'm going to call into our CTEF. We're going to start getting going here. We will reference Waypoint 1 to start. So it should be just our muster point, and then we'll move on to get some gas. So follow me out in a moment, and I will put red smoke when I'm over here. Couple any traffic. Expert 1-1, flight of 10 F-18. Taxi to hold short, runway 25, westerly departure. Calmly. Calling out now, and most of the calls I do from this point onwards will be on SRS, but if you have a problem, shout out on Discord and we can resolve your SRS issues.
Taxi. Two's taxing. I think someone might be on the spot. Somebody's slotting in before me, so we got out of line here. It's me too. I just slotted in front of you. I think someone's in front of me. I see. And what's our loadout? Behind you.
Our loadout is just some 500-pound Mark 82s. I've got a center fuel tank. I would suggest everybody take at least one center fuel tank, and it's effectively I've matched what's on the loadout on the new order. You can take more fuel if you want. It's entirely up to you.
Hey V, this is Tal. Just a heads up, we are taxiing out and going to get set up shortly on runway 25.
Sounds good, yeah, we're a little bit delayed here. We should be rolling out in about 10 minutes.
Too easy, my dude.
That's correct, Mark 82s. The reason for that is they get the job done. They let us do what we need to do, but they're not super heavy, so it won't impact our flight or our flight profile too much. It still will affect it a bit. We still have 2,000 pounds on each wing, but better than if we're taking 2,000 pounders on each wing and doubling that.
Seven, I'm just delayed a minute waiting for some bombs.
1.
10 taxi.
Now I'm going to start braking here, guys, and I will hold short of the runway before we take it.
1311, it looks like we're a little out of order. How do you want us to handle it?
If you can, once we start lining up the runway, fix the order there. But depends on how badly we are out of order, to be honest.
3, I think we're back in order. 7's taxiing.
A few moments later.
next time we fly, just to make it easy for me more than anything, when you're rearming or you're setting up a jet, put your Modex number in that little number slot, because at the moment your jet's reading 947. I just had to check. Not a big deal, just because I can make it easy. Sorry, 949 it is. Roger. Oh, thank you. Press 0. Love it. And it should just have rocks in Georgia. Cool. So, Bryce, I'm seeing rocks coming up behind you. Alright, so 389, just let in the jet that's slotting in. Perfect. Good work getting this nice and tidy, people. Really, really good. You're clear to proceed. 389, rock. So whilst we are lining up, I will call for a 10-second interval. So same deal as last time. I'll go 10 seconds later to 10 seconds later 3, so on down to 10. And I will blow red smoke. I will keep 300 knots in the box, and I will fly up to 10,000 feet. So it'll be 300 and 10,000 for our initial flight towards the takeoff. Three, you can come a little bit forward. 3. Yeah, that's good. 8, you can probably go a little bit more forward. Yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. Alrighty, lights, brakes on, and run them up to 80. And please check your brakes, make sure they are working. Awesome. And 1 is rolling.
Two's rolling.
City traffic, 310 taxiing 1321 with a flight of 8 FA-18s via Sierra Alpha, City.
Red smoke on for everybody watching.
Fine,
Hey, Taltis, what is the call sign for the flight? Expert 1 and Expert 2. Roger.
7's rolling.
We're rolling to the runway now. Excelente.
Good stuff, man.
10's rolling.
Traffic expert 1, flight attendant 10 F-18, departed runway 25 westerly, clear on the air for yours, expert 2, good morning. Ready for flight plan, just heading towards Waypoint 1 at the moment. I'm about to fly, but I'll just keep going in that direction at 300 knots and 10,000 feet. Can you guys hear me? Plan is I'm going to wait for everybody just to catch up into a general group. So once dash 10 being last off is closer, climb up to 22,000 feet, which is at Takeoff altitude, and then make our way there. Reason. Copy, visual.
Eventually.
I would probably do it a little bit faster if we had a small flight, but I'm also very mindful that we've got a lot of people here. I'm going to do two things now. I'm going to get everybody to start flying on my left-hand side. So flight move to echelon left, and we'll start slowing down as we get a little closer, just to be mindful of that.
Pass under the bottom here. We lost
Dropping
one.
down
There
almost
he is.
close idle now, just to take us down to about 300 knots, as we're within 1 mile of the tanker now. And it's just up ahead, almost dead end by 1 o'clock, a little bit higher than we are. Just gonna raise the nose a little bit just to get to a nice fall with the tanker itself. And this spot is almost I want to say a slower, calm version of a rejoin. You can see very, very safe. We're not running into risk of hitting it with anybody else. We're in a nice position leading up into the takeoff. And the reason I'm keeping it about 290 at the the moment is 30 knots. If you go idle, you can lose 30 knots very, very quickly. Not at any risk of running into the tanker itself, which not a big problem here because they are invulnerable, but if you are flying in a military mission, for example, obviously that's not what to do. So bringing it back now, and then I'll slide in right next to the tanker on his left. And here we are. Now, for this part, we do need the AI to be able to communicate cleanly. So when the AI is talking, try not to transmit on SRS, I'll bug it out of it unfortunately. But now that we're all roughly in the same area, what I'm going to do is show you the procedure. I'll actually go through it from start to finish, including tanking, and I'll talk you through the entire process. So to start off with, I'm just flying along with the tanker here, we're all good. I've already done that initial comm check, and that's by hitting the COM2 Discord, COM2 DCS keybind, going into tankers, finding the Texaco 11, usually at the top of the list because we're closest to it, and requesting refuel. I wouldn't do it yet, do it once you are ready to tank. And it's your turn. But what I'm going to do now is, he said, yep, all good.
You guys going some way here. Sorry, say again.
Stand up.
You guys going a long way here to the tanker, about 130 miles. Ship is being quicker. It's hard because we only have one, like a close range. Yeah, we're going to Texaco 2-1 here. We should be there in about 10-15 minutes. Copy that. Once you guys are ready, I'll take over. When you have to go, we can drop some bombs as we group. Yeah, I'm gonna have to disconnect from the tanker, so you're gonna have to have him find you. Yep.
Alrighty, flight. So, you'll see I've just kind of slotted in under the wing, a little bit behind. What we're going to do is, once you're in this position, you hit that ready pre-contact call.
Ready pre-contact. Clear contact.
Clear contact is the nicest thing you'll ever hear because it means the bag and the basket is coming out. I'm going to open up my probe now. Wing's turning a bit. This is going to be fun. So, the tanker will turn, does a bit of a trap pattern. And what you want to do is, it needs to be nice and clean, right? It needs to be very smooth. You get yourself lined up and try not to get behind the engines because you will get some wake turbulence. You get a nice position behind the basket, and I would suggest you try to do it more when it's like straight, because in a turn it's a bit harder. Keep an eye on the aircraft more than the basket, and then once you're ready, just kind of push a little bit more. It's a bit harder in a turn and talking, but you just nicely line up and then let it slot in.
Contact.
Go a little bit forward so you're not right at the edge of the hose's length, and then you just sit here and you hold your form with the tanker whilst you're refueling. Now the big thing to be mindful of is, as long as you don't go nuts and lose your nice smooth form when you connect, then it's just a matter of in the right area, keeping that form and not moving. Now, it's a bit harder again in a turn. The reality is, do it in a straight line practice, and then just trying to be as calm, as composed as possible whilst flying here. Any questions so far? Alrighty, so soon I'll be fully topped off. I'm going to top off fully myself just because I have, I'll be flying around while you guys are enjoying yourself. and just keeping an eye on things. So I'll probably burn a little bit more fuel, being the first one. But once I jump off and I'm full of fuel, I'll then move over to that right echelon position and sit in the observation area until members of the flight can give it a go. As I said, don't expect anyone to take first go or get a full tank at all. If you do, great. It's a long stint of practice. There we go, I'm full. Putting my probe away, looking fine. I drop down a little bit, calmly float over to the other side, and then I'll set up in starboard ops. Now, for everybody else in the flight, feel free to start doing your comms. Do it in order of the flight, like the position you're in. So whoever's next up, you can do your call in now, wait for the AI to call, and then the next person can do it as well. Run on both sides of the wing.
Thousands of tears later.
Return free contact.
This is 7. I gotta return to base for gas around on the rise. I'm jumping out.
Yep, copy that. Alrighty, so the two people that are just behind the tanker now, I can't see your numbers from here. Feel free to start slotting in and giving your shot a go.
Texaco 1-1. Request rejoin.
Me to send them to the contact you.
Texaco 1-1. Proceed to pre-contact at 22,000 at 260.
What frequency or what's the preset?
Channel 7 on auxiliary, just the Texaco 1.
Texaco 1-1. Request rejoin.
Channel 7, okay.
Texaco 1-1. Ready pre-contact. 1,000 at 260. Ready pre-contact. Return pre-contact. Ready pre-contact.
Count this is 392 with flight 2 looking to connect with you.
Howdy, we're just finishing up our air refueling, and then we will meet you at the Company X. So, for your flight, if you want to, in your TACAM, select channel 67 X-ray and navigate in that general direction. We will meet you there shortly.
Ready pre-contact. Cleared contact. Contact. You're taking fuel.
what altitude are you going to be at over there?
We are currently sitting at 22,000 feet.
Copy, 22,000, thank you.
If you don't get the brake, then the chance either your attack isn't set correctly, or you haven't turned it on, or you haven't boxed it. So what I would do is, as a matter of figuring that out, hit TCN on your up-front controller, make sure 6-7 is entered, you see the word on, and the X, so the second last circle button has the colon next to it. And then on your HSI page, go over and make sure that the top left TACAN symbol has a box around it.
Yep, all of the above is right.
Abort rejoin.
Okay, the only other reason for that, actually I might even just use Discord, give it a roll on the group now, so stand by, I'll chat on there.
Texaco 1-1. Request rejoin. Texaco 1-1. Proceed to pre-contact at 22,000 at 260. Transfer complete.
I've only got 3,500 pounds of fuel, so I'm gonna be in trouble, I reckon.
Ready pre-contact. Return pre-contact.
Texas Trevor 270, it's moving to starboard. Pre-contact.
What's your fuel range, the first one flight, low fuel?
Ready pre-contact. Return pre-contact. Ready pre-contact. Return pre-contact. Ready pre-contact. Cleared contact.
Is there any way to center them back on yourself?
There is. In fact, it should center on you automatically. Unless I'm misunderstanding the question.
No, I hit F10 and it's just got a big lot of nothing on the screen. What this? I'm certainly not the center of it.
Oh, an F10, right, I get you now. Sorry, I thought you meant the to the side. Okay. I think there is. I think it might be Alt 10, something like that.
Ready pre-contact. Contact. Return pre-contact. Cleared contact.
Control F10, that will send to you on yourself.
Got it.
Contact.
Nice, perfect.
Contact. You're taking fuel.
Alright, we are passing the halfway point on this tanker track, so let us start moving off to, we'll go to the left, we'll start dropping some altitude and heading towards convoluting or 67 X-ray. And moving forward for both flights, I'll just start talking on Discord, just to make it easy in case anybody's lost which channel to go on to. Good luck for you guys on takeoff.
Yes, sir. You guys are doing fine.
Transfer complete. Disconnect.
Much later.
Ready, pre-contact. Cleared contact.
Yeah, all good.
contact. You're taking fuel. Return pre-contact.
Altitude. Altitude.
Got him.
Return pre-contact. Ready pre-contact. Cleared contact.
Altitude. 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 Altitude.
I think this one's already blown up, but I'm gonna hit it anyway.
Altitude. Altitude.
Boom. Wasn't blown up.
pre-contact. You're taking fuel.
Altitude.
Return pre-contact.
One eight single fuel.
Return pre-contact. Ready pre-contact. Return pre-contact.
Mag 0, do my
Ready pre-contact. Return pre-contact.
Up ahead. I'm feeling you already have his brakes, that's fine.
Ready pre-contact. Cleared contact.
Altitude.
Return pre-contact.
Altitude.
Ready pre-contact. Cleared contact.
more spooky.
I'm too heavy.
Return pre-contact.
So much later that the old narrator got tired of waiting, and they had to hire a new one.
Flight trip 378 on base, short final 25, full stop. Go Blady.
Alright, I think you can start your turn in now, Bryce.
Ability traffic 381, long final.
Contact. You're taking fuel.
Flight trip 378 clear the active.
Contact.
Looking good there, Bryce. Very tidy, very tidy. Already got a little correction to the left. You can just hold what you got all the way down. Very nice there, good landing, tidy up.
Fuel low. Fuel low.
Ability traffic 381, clear the runway. Ability traffic.
Alrighty, Bryce, we're going to move over to Discord. Good landing there, and thank you for the excellent flight.